On the trapeze, we're joined by Program Director of Applied Intelligence at Gannon University, Benjamin Baughman, and Senior Fellow with the Cato Institute, Patrick Eddington. Welcome to both of you, gentlemen.
Thanks, John.
Thank you for having us.
So, Patrick, let's start with you. What's the current situation regarding the president's federalization of troops in states like California, potentially other states? In particular, what authority is he acting on?
Still about 300 Guard troops deployed in California. There are, of course, more that are deployed, have been deployed here in D.C. One of the primary authorities has been 10 U.S. Code, Section 12406. It's a very vaguely worded statute, and I think the administration, has really exploited it pretextually because the reality is crime has been going down across the country for the last several years, including murder rates in pretty much every city. So I don't think that there's really actually a justifiable basis for calling up those National Guard troops, especially the ones from out of state.
So, Ben, in what situations can National Guard deployment be essential for public safety in your mind?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's something that the Congress is going to have to struggle with, because I think what the president is arguing, what the Republicans are arguing, is that any crime is bad crime, especially when we're losing lives. It may look like crime's going down, especially since 2021 when we switched away from the way statistics were unified and reported through the FBI. Now we've got a breakdown in that. So, when people are losing their lives, it's a big deal. And that is the argument that's being put forward.
So, Ben, I just want to follow up one quick thing you said, and that is Congress has to act. What did you mean by that?
So, through today in D.C., the 30-day response of the D.C. National Guard is the way it's supposed to be. Whenever there's an issue for the Home Rule Act in D.C., beyond that, we're in uncharted territory. And I think people need to start looking at that and determining, is this crossing a line? And the line needs to be defined better.
Okay, Patrick, I'm going to shift over to you. A couple of things. First, the president's crackdown on crime. What crimes are we talking about, first of all? And you have a National Guard background. We thank you for your service. After the answer to that first question, tell us how the Guard is trained and whether they're prepared to handle policing duties.
Well, I don't think there's any question, that, Mr. Trump has made a lot about violent crime, especially, and a lot of murders that have been taking place. And obviously, Chicago has been a real problem in that respect. And it's giving him a lot of ammunition, a lot of political ammunition, no pun intended, to kind of drive this entire program. But as a general rule, most National Guard troops are simply not trained in any kind of civilian law enforcement. That would not necessarily apply to military police units, but even those units are going to be much more focused on the Uniform Code of Military Justice and enforcing it, on base in a military context, things of that nature. So I do think that it's extremely hazardous to have a lot of National Guard troops out there who don't have the kind of background and experience, for example, that Ben does, an actual professional law enforcement officer, trying to engage in these kinds of acts.
So what's the harm, Patrick, in using the National Guard as a deterrent?
Well, I think it sends an extremely chilling message, right? I mean, when you put troops on the streets and people see that, especially when the troops are armed, and the circumstances simply doesn't justify it. And it's absolutely not justified in D.C. I mean, the crime rate, especially the murder rate, is at its lowest point literally in years. So again, I think the notion that calling up National Guard personnel for this kind of purpose, and it's clearly pretextual in my judgment, really sends a bad message. It also sets a terrible precedent because, if Trump winds up getting away with this, if this all goes all the way to the Supreme Court ultimately, and the Supreme Court affirms what Trump has done, then it will provide new precedents for any of his predecessors to turn around and try to do the same thing, oftentimes probably for political reasons.
Okay, so Ben, is the president acting out of step here, or do you think what he's doing is in the best interest of the local communities? Is he undermining the authority of state and local governments, for example?
I don't think he's undermining anything. I am concerned about the precedents that this sets. I think that is something that we have in common here, but I don't think that he's out of line. I think we have three functioning branches of government, and I'm hoping to see that with Congress deciding whether or not the extension is something that should be done, because they should be the ones that do this under the act. So I'm looking forward to see what happens. they're being utilized as force multipliers. So they're not going to be out actively patrolling. We're not going to see that, whether they stay 60 days, 90 days. They're not trained for that. What they are trained for is, and what they can be used for, is to secure physical locations and freeing up additional police officers that do not need to worry about those locations to do their jobs.
So how can state governments push back against this? Will the courts rule against this, Ben?
I am interested to see. It depends on which court and who put them there. Really, I think this needs to be a Congress thing. I don't think we're in the two. I know it's being ruled on in different courts, but it would be nice to see Congress make a ruling on this and decide, okay, the 30 days have passed. Are we going to extend it versus Trump doing it and then sending troops elsewhere? I get the reasoning behind it, that, you know, a life lost is something that can't be returned. So I get the reasoning behind it, but the end doesn't always justify the means.
So Patrick, I want to go back to you with your National Guard background. First of all, when the Guard was deployed in D.C., they weren't in an offensive posture. They were basically present, as you noted, right? And it seems like when they were in California, they were protecting the federal interest. They weren't kicking in doors with local cops and getting people. So it's more of a protective status with them. With that as a background, if that's all the president's trying to do, is he stepping out of what the parameters of his authorities are?
Well, as Judge Breyer found in his ruling in California last week, in fact, the Guard was actively engaged up to 150 miles outside of Los Angeles, assisting with cannabis farm raids, running checkpoints, and all the rest of that. And Judge Breyer did a meticulous job, you know, of documenting that. And of course, that's exactly the kind of law enforcement activity by military personnel that's expressly prohibited under the Posse Comitatus Act, which is why he ruled as he did. Whether that ruling will be upheld by the Ninth Circuit, if it is, it goes to the Supreme Court, none of that would actually, you know, surprise me. But you know, the other aspect of this, John, you asked about the pushback from the states, and I think that J.B. Pritzker, Wes Moore, and some others have done a really pretty good job here in highlighting essentially the hypocrisy of what the administration is doing. This stuff is absolutely pretextual. It's also a direct assault on state rights, as far as I'm concerned. I think it's a head-on assault on the 10th Amendment. And I'll just go back to, you know, the period between 1988 and 1991, when Reagan and Bush were in office, and D.C. was a mess in terms of murders. I mean, nearly 500 in 1991. There were no Guard call-ups then, and I think that's because Reagan and Bush understood that this is a law enforcement function.
So, Patrick, let me interrupt you since we've got a short time left, and just a quick yes or no answer, and then I'm going to go to Ben. And that is, would it be a much better situation if the governors agreed to bring in the National Guard troops with them?
It would be a good situation if the President of the United States respected the decision of governors. And if governors said, we don't need it, don't bring them.
Okay. Ben, your take.
Yeah, so I agree with what is being said. I also think that it is our government's function to provide safety for us. And I think that's the argument that's being put forward, is that we're not safe. So until that's challenged and safe is defined versus what's being argued, whether crime's going up, whether it's going down, indicators are showing that the guards are working in DC. So does that mean that we keep them indefinitely? I don't think that's sustainable. I think everybody would agree on that, and that'd be common ground. So how long are they going to be there? What are we going to put in place so it is sustainable?
All right, gentlemen, thank you both. A great conversation.